I am Vanessa Thomas, and I am on the education team here at the center. Welcome to your breakout session using the arts to educate, youth development, and mentorship programs at work. At the Kennedy Center, we have a number of youth career building programs in the arts, and I have the pleasure of overseeing our Exploring Ballet with Suzanne Farrell program. That's a 3-week intensive for pre-professional ballet dancers to study with iconic ballerina Suzanne Farrell. And Suzanne really exemplifies our JFK ideal of service through her decades of commitment to the education and mentoring of young dancers. So how today is going to work, we have an extraordinary group of people before us, an extraordinary moderator, and for the questions that I'm sure you're bound to have, you should have all received a couple of note cards. So as the conversation progresses, please take the time to write any questions you have on the note cards, and we're asking that you put one question per card so that it's easier to read them and move through them. And we will collect those cards before the Q&A at the end. So there will be people in the aisles who can collect those cards from you. And our panelists will respond to some of those questions at the end. If you do need a card, raise your hand, as these lovely people are demonstrating over here, and my colleague Sherelle will get some to you. So let's dive in. Our host for this session is Lark McCarthy, an Emmy award-winning journalist and communication... I'm sure you will share their enthusiasm once I tell you about Lark. She is an Emmy award-winning journalist and communication specialist. For 17 years, Lark was anchor and senior editor of Fox 5 Morning News in Washington, D.C. She is also a former White House correspondent for ABC News and a former CBS News anchor. Currently, Lark serves as a chair of the Kennedy Center's National Committee for the Performing Arts. So please join me in welcoming Lark McCarthy.
Thank you, Vanessa. Really appreciate that. And Vanessa, and of course, in addition to her work here at the Kennedy Center, she is a writer, producer, director, so she is a multi-talented package. And yes, I do have plants in the audience. What can I say? A number of members are here from the National Committee for the Performing Arts, which I chair. And I have to give them all a shout out. Thank you guys for being here and for the support. I really appreciate it. We are holding our spring meeting in DC this weekend, and we did it specifically so that we could attend the Arts Summit and get to know more about it. And mostly, as we now realize from this morning, to experience it, because it is so difficult to explain. But that energy this morning was so great, and we hope to continue that here this afternoon. You know, as a committee, we have supported many of the arts education programs that the Kennedy Center has in place, and we've seen them in action around the country, and that's why we're so excited to learn about other things going on around the country, because we believe in the power of the arts, you know, the power to transform lives and communities. So I thank all of you in the audience for being here today to be a part of that conversation. And we really do want it to be a conversation about varying approaches and in some cases actual interventions that are used to mentor young people through arts, through education, and through civics. You know, and you might say to yourself, well, civics, well where does that fit in? Well, it fits in, think of it this way, with decision making, that if our local leaders are making bad decisions, how is an arts community going to thrive? So if we don't have leaders who are making good decisions about building strong communities, about lowering crime, about the importance of arts corridors and supporting artists. So that's where civics comes into this whole dialogue in a very important way. So whether it is using music, ensembles training, the power of images, or bolstering student voice and action, the guests on this panel are all activating artists and citizens and citizen artists. So let me just tell you just a little bit briefly about each group. So basically our format is we're going to have a presentation from our 3 groups. I'll tell you a little bit about the 3 groups, then I'll introduce the individual panelists. But we're going to hear first from Harmony Project, represented by Laura Shultz and Margaret Martin. It's a mentoring program, and they're going to explain why they don't really like to say it's a music program, that it's a mentoring program that uses intensive music training and ensemble participation as a means to engage children with the greatest needs and the fewest resources. Here from the Mikva Challenge DC, we have Robyn Lingo and student Maya Branch right there in the center. The Mikva Challenge is our civics piece, and they're going to talk so much, and Maya's been so involved. Wait till you hear more about Maya Branch. But they try to engage young people by action civics, by authentic and transformative learning processes built on the youth voice and the youth expertise. And it's modeled after a successful civic engagement program that was developed in Chicago. And you're also going to hear about National Geographic Photo Camp from Kirsten Elstner, she's director of the photo camp, and Ronan Donovan, a celebrated photographer. And we also have two students who went through that program, Sartre Ndebaneza and Reema Faheed. So with that, let me introduce you to our two participants from Harmony Project. Wow. So Dr. Martin has such an amazing individual story that includes a freshman at community college at age 33, teen pregnancy, homelessness. I think this woman knows a thing or two about perseverance. And she started the Harmony Project. Also here is Laura Shultz, who is from the Harmony Project Kansas City. She's the executive director of the Northeast Community Center, and she has been the executive director since 2008. So with that, Margaret, do you want to start us off? Or Laura? You want to start us off about Harmony Project?
I'll start with my program. Okay. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for having us here. It's so wonderful to be with people of like minds aiming for the same results. Harmony Project Kansas City is part of the nationally recognized Harmony Project in LA. It's a research-based youth development and mentoring program that uses intense music education as a means for positive development, social inclusion, and community safety in low-income neighborhoods. It is tuition-free, held up after school and on weekends with group lessons, ensemble practice, and the students are followed all the way through grade school and high school with the goal of college readiness, and we provide scholarships when the time comes. How did this happen in Kansas City? We have a community center that has been in existence for over 75 years, serving the families for educational, social, and cultural programs, and in the low-income population. This area is known to have one of the highest crime rates and one of the highest poverty rates in Kansas City, pardon me. In 2014, we had a chance to start a new program, and we decided that we would study what the issues were. And we all know that the American education process is in perpetual crisis. Our desire was to find the best way to supplement the deficit of educational opportunities for the children in our marginalized neighborhood. We were disheartened to read that 1 in 3 high school students fails to graduate. 1.2 million students drop out each year. And among minorities, 50%. So what about our part of Northeast Kansas City? Well, our local dropout rate is 40%. And our children are living in poverty, and they're facing hunger and fear daily. 95% of our children qualify for free meals. Sorry. We polled the families to see what the top 3 concerns were in the neighborhood, and we were not surprised to find that they wanted better education, lower crime, and out-of-school activities for children. Harmony Project in LA was successfully addressing all of those needs in the toughest gang zones. The students were defying all odds. Dr. Martin noticed that they were beginning to excel in academics and social skills, become mentors, and go on to college. She realized that beyond the music, it was an effective public health intervention for youth. They were successfully mentoring hundreds and now thousands in California. It's a research-based program. 100% of college acceptance last year with their students alone. 2 Fulbright scholars, twice honored by the White House President's Committee on Arts and Humanities. So, after visiting LA and having the privilege to meet graduating seniors, we were sold. We became the 5th affiliate of Harmony Project, opening our doors in January of 2015 to 33 students. We got to work forming partnerships, hiring teachers, fundraising, connecting with universities, conservatories, law enforcement and civic leaders, housing authorities, philanthropists, arts organizations, and corporations. We wanted to cover all of our bets. They saw it as a community improvement initiative, a crime prevention program, and a civic opportunity for cross-cultural experiences. One of our top ambassadors has been the renowned Michael Stern, music director of the Kansas City Symphony, who states, "I think Harmony Project KC is one of the most inspiring and transformational things to happen to the musical, cultural, and educational landscape of Kansas City in a very long time." No one thought it was a bad idea. Why music? The results of this program caught the attention of Dr. Nina Kraus, neurobiologist from the Auditory Neuroscience Lab at Northwestern University. She followed several LA students for years, and she stated that it has been shown that intensive group music training can help offset the negative impact of poverty on a child's brain. She goes on to say that music, even more than other art forms, has a powerful biologic influence, actually changing the shape of the brain, improving focus, listening, language development, processing sound, reading skills, and academic trajectory in lower-income children. How does it work in Kansas City? We accept anyone from the area. No music experience is necessary. We have children with attention deficits and Tourette's who were suffering at first, who are thriving now. The only requirements we have are that the students commit to practice at home and care for their instruments, and parents sign a pledge to provide that quiet time for practice. They have to maintain good attendance in the program, attend leadership classes when they reach middle school, thereby becoming mentors to less experienced students, giving back, which is a key part of the program. Students must stay in school. So how are we doing after 2 years? After 2 years, all of our students have stayed in school, of course. 60% improved grades. Annual attendance was over 90%. Enrollment more than tripled from 33 6 to 10-year-olds to 143 to 14-year-olds. We're aiming for 200 this year. All of our students passed their character building assessments, which count as 50% of their grades. They have performed with the Kansas City Symphony at museums, and they have been invited to open at a Royals baseball game. Guess which one is the most exciting to them? Following our own 2-year research, report cards, teachers, and parents' assessments, our results are in, and this program is working beyond our imagination. We started a scholarship fund for our future college graduates, and we're partnering with 2 universities who are working with the children and families beginning in middle school to find that affordable path to college. I missed a few, didn't I? One of these girls did not smile for 6 months. She was apparently bullied at school. She now smiles. She has become one of our top mentors. And she says, "As soon as I walk through these gates, everything seems great." In a nutshell, we have found that mentoring through music helps youth build safer schools and communities, helps children thrive in school, closes the achievement gap, develops college readiness mindset. We have found a solution that is working for our kids in our small part of the world. This can happen in any city. Please allow me to introduce Dr. Margaret Martin.
Thank you, Laura. So we have now programs in 10 regions across 7 states with over 5,000 kids engaged, and that's just the beginning, because we've begun to successfully engage cities and entire school districts in adopting the model. The neuroscience research has been pretty transformative for us, because Dr. Kraus in 2013 published a study in which she identified a neurologic profile of poverty in kids, specific biologically measurable cognitive functions that were found to be, that tended to be significantly reduced in kids from impoverished backgrounds, that impede the capacity of those kids to learn. The very cool thing is she sent a team of neuroscientists to Los Angeles to work with kids from our waiting list who agreed to participate in this research. They gave 5-hour neurologic and academic assessments to all of these kids and then randomly assigned them into participants and waitlist controls. The reason we could do that was the waiting time for Harmony Project at the time was, well, it's about 2.5 to 4 years, and we have hundreds of kids on our waiting list. So they've now published 10 articles in peer-reviewed neuroscience journals documenting significant improvement in cognitive function in specifically exactly the areas in which kids from impoverished backgrounds show deficits, including significantly improved precision with which their brains are capturing sound, significantly improved hearing in noise, which is a phenomenal proxy for focus, and significantly improved literacy, specifically reading at grade level by 3rd grade, where the participants nailed their 3rd grade reading targets and the waitlisted controls did not, which was as to be expected from that population group. So basically, the whole reason that this neuroscience research was inspired was our kids were coming from areas with minimally educated parents, 50% dropout rates, where those who did graduate, few of them tended to graduate with at least 4 grade levels behind their more advantaged peers. And we find them going to Dartmouth, Tulane, NYU, USC, 30 to 50% as STEM majors. It made no sense. So my time is up right now, but we could talk more about the neuroscience research findings when we get to the Q&A portion. Yes. Thank you.
And absolutely we will. Thank you, Dr. Martin. Thank you so much. Fascinating research with my alma mater, Northwestern. So, all right, we definitely will have to talk more about that. But now we're going to move on to the Mikva Challenge. Robyn Lingo is the executive director of the Mikva Challenge DC. She is a Washington, D.C. area native, and she is passionate about providing authentic spaces for D.C. youth to investigate and to affect change in the world around them. Now, she also loves roadside diners because of the pie. So if you want, just saying that if you want to engage this woman, you know how. All right, when I introduce Maya Branch, I want you all to think about what you were doing when you were a senior in high school, okay? So Maya Branch is currently finishing up her high school career at Benjamin Banneker Academic High School right here in D.C. She has demonstrated a keen interest in education policy, advocacy, and social work. Not only has she been active in her school's journalism community and Pride Alliance, she has also worked with the Smithsonian's Youth Civic Engagement Program. And with Mikva Challenge DC, she's interned with a local official, she's registered new voters, and she's written and performed a powerful Project Soapbox speech. You slackers, you, all of you. With that, let me turn it over to Robyn and Maya.
Stand over here so I can see my slides. So my name's Robyn. I'm the executive director of Mikva Challenge DC. And our slogan is democracy is a verb. But after this morning, I think I'm going to lobby our board that we should change it to actually democracy is an art. Because listening and thinking this morning about what it means to perform an art together, where each person has their own piece, we are all moving and working together towards a common goal, towards an output. I think, as Lark was talking about, it's hard, maybe you're wondering why a civic engagement organization is here. But I just want you to imagine that democracy is the art we are all agreeing to be part of. And if that is true, then Mikva Challenge's mission is that we have to start with young people. So our mission is that we engage young people and their voice and their activism in democracy now. There's no reason that we need to wait until people are 18 to allow them to be part of our democratic society, our institutions, our processes. And in fact, we do a big disservice by the way we have structured our schools, which are very undemocratic situations and very undemocratic environments, that we're not giving young people the chance to practice and to participate and to have their voice heard and to get a chance to see how their own opinions and expertise can be put into action. So Mikva Challenge is all about giving young people those opportunities. in a thing we call Action Civics. Those of you, all of us who went to high school, we learned civics, we learned the 3 branches of government, but did we actually get to do it? And so Action Civics is about taking what was in the curriculum in your textbook and giving you a chance to live it. And we do that by first saying, youth are experts about the things that young people experience. So young people in DC are experts about what it is like to go to school in DC. They have knowledge that we as adults don't have. We should take that expertise, we should give them a chance to have their voice, to reflect, and then to learn by doing. We do that through 3 main things here in DC. The first is our biggest, is community problem solving, and I'm going to talk about that in a little more detail in a minute. But second, we do actual electoral engagement. We get young people out volunteering on campaigns, registering new voters. We had a great debate watch party this fall where we streamed the last presidential debate and talked about it with high school students. And we had 100 high school students this fall who worked as election workers at polling stations across the city, checking people in, getting a chance to see how that process works. In the summer, we also do a summer fellowship program where young people have a chance to intern with local officials, bring their youth expertise to important local policy debates. So bringing that expertise about what it's like to ride the metro, what it's like to ride public transportation as a student, what it's like to eat school lunch, to the officials in our city who are making the policy, and bringing their knowledge and helping to do research and gather opinions. So the community problem solving follows a 6-step process. It's a pretty easy process, but it's also really, it revolutionizes, I think, what young people can see themselves as being able to do. So first, we ask them to examine their community, strengths, weaknesses, what's going well, what are some things that you would like to see be different. Identify an issue. Conduct research, including all of our classes do a root cause analysis. So if you want to think about what's wrong with school lunch, well, let's break it down to what are the root causes of that. What are the symptoms? The symptoms are maybe soggy hot dogs. What are the root causes? Is that because there isn't enough money? Is that because there's not good transportation to get fresh food? And then to help them also think about, well, who is in charge of that issue? If you want to get better food in your school cafeteria, is that the president? Is that the superintendent? Is that the food service director? You need to know who makes that decision, and you need to know how to lobby them. So that's where we analyze power, develop a strategy, and the last step is to take action. We have been here in DC for about 2 years. Our Chicago office is 18 years old. If you're wondering about our name, we're named after a wonderful man named Abner Mikva, who was a Chicago representative and then a district court judge, and at the end of his career, he was general counsel to President Clinton. So we were honored in name of him to really inspire a new generation of engaged young citizen leaders. In this, so all of this is about inquiry, action, reflection, and also about making learning relevant, about helping young people take what they know about their lives and use that as a starting place for education. The first part of our, after you identify an issue, we ask every student in a classroom to do this activity called Project Soapbox, which is very simple. It's it's 1.5 questions. What is the biggest issue facing your community, and what should be done about it? Every young person writes a 2 to 3 minute speech and then delivers that speech in front of their peers. We bring invited guests, local leaders, business people into the classroom to elevate youth voice, to give them a chance to be heard by the adult leaders in their community. And from that, we've seen that over 90% of participants, the young people who do Project Soapbox, want to take action on that issue or on other issues that they hear their peers talk about. So one of the things, there was a group of researchers at DePaul University last fall that did a big study on Project Soapbox. And they found that all of the things that you would think it improves students' writing, their verbal communication, their research skills, but the biggest impact that it has is actually on students' ability to empathize, to listen, to be able to talk across difference, to understand somebody else's experience and be willing to engage in conversations with people whose lives are different than yours. And It's a skill we all need to cultivate right now in our current situation. So we really think it's an important thing that we're training young people in being able to do that and that they can lead us. So what I'm going to do is actually bring up Maya Branch, who's one of our star students, as Lark already mentioned, who's going to tell you just a few minutes about what she does with Mikva, and then she's going to present her Project Soapbox speech from this fall.
Thank you. Thanks, Robyn.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. As Ms. Robyn said, my name is Maya Branch. I'm a senior at Banneker High School right here in DC. My experiences with Mikva started when I was a sophomore in high school. I got started with Project Soapbox in the classroom. This year I went to the citywide competition, and I've also had the wonderful opportunity to work in DC Council Member David Grasso's office over the summer, where I got to work on an array of issues such as disability, gender equity, and things of that sort. I think I'll just go into my speech now. I am a feminist. I am a black feminist. From the earliest times of history, women like me have been marching alongside our brothers, carrying them on our backs while we towed vapid land, picking them up and nursing them back to life when a racist world has shot them down, bailing them out of jail for convictions that were probably motivated by the color of their skin, leading movements, only to have you, black boy, whine about how oppressed you are because of the color of your skin, and yet use your male privilege to hurt black women all in the same breath. Hyper-masculinity. The exaggeration of male characteristics that promote aggression and sexuality can be seen in the way that we forgive abusive black athletes because obviously the accusations are just another way to undermine a black man's achievements. The way that black women are 3 times more likely to accept abuse. The way that homosexuality is interpreted as an attack on the black family rather than the free expression of love. The way that black men have become so wrapped up in assimilating that they say things like hashtag white girls are winning, which only reinforces ideas of us black girls being useful for nothing more than our bodies. Maybe it's easy for black men to cling to the tiny strand of privilege they have, but is it really that hard to understand that interracial dating is okay, but holding a white wife as the standard of success is not? How can you tweet Black Lives Matters but be silent when there were black women who accused Mr. Cosby of rape too? Be silent when confronted with the news of women like Rekia Boyd? Are we not worth your protests? Have you forgotten what it feels like to be that ugly 3/5? Hyper-masculinity is just another way to imprison black bodies, and I'm tired of seeing young black men fall victim to the streets rather than a college education. So this is a friendly reminder to Ray Rice, my father, my brother, my nephew, that black masculinity does not have to be toxic. If it takes a village to raise a child, let us teach young black boys to not only be strong. Let us raise them to be gentle, to cry when they are sad or squeal for joy when they are happy. After all, us black girls are not the only ones with a little bit of magic in our melanin. You too are allowed to be carefree, to wear Timbs on your feet or flowers in your hair. This is a friendly reminder that we can dismantle racism and smash the patriarchy simultaneously. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you so much, Maya. And her speech is on YouTube if you'd like to see it again or share it, okay? Next, we're going to hear about National Geographic's photo camp. You're going to come, okay, so Kirsten Elstner is here. She's going to come on up, and while she does it, I will tell you she is director of that photo camp and also the executive director of Vision Workshops. Also with us, I think I mentioned this, Ronan Donovan. Let me just set him up a little bit because I think his story is also just so incredibly cool that he sort of got into this by photographing chimpanzees in Uganda from up above. Do I have that right? And then he later taught himself the technical aspects of photography and filmmaking, so there's hope for all of us. You may know his work from the famous Yellowstone project with the gray wolves. He was part of that, and he has also been very involved with the photo camp. Now, photo camp brings together young people in Baltimore, and the idea is to let them tell their own stories as well as the stories of others through photography. And one component of that, and they'll explain more about that, is children who have been refugees have gone through this camp. And we have 2 of them here with us today. So I promised Sartre that I was going to work on his last name to try to be authentic, and he was so lovely and kind bearing with me. So Sartre, say it for me again. Ndebaneza. So I want all of you to roll up to this. It's so wonderful, right, to learn something else. So thank you, Sartre. We appreciate that. And also with us is Reema Faheed. But we'll start with Kirsten talking about the photo camp, giving us the overview.
Thank you so much, Lark, and thank you. We're really excited to be here with you today. National Geographic has some incredible resources and talent in the field of photography to share with the world. The mission of Photo Camp is to inspire young people through the power of photography and storytelling, and to allow them to tell their own stories, but also to allow the rest of us to hear their stories and to hear what they have to say and to see what they can create. So we have had some very creative students over the past 14 years that we've been working on photo camps. And we have been all over the world, so we're not just in Baltimore, this is just one of our camps. We've been all over the world, and we've had some incredibly creative young people to work with. So fortunate enough to have 2 of them here today, Sartre and Reema. They are both part of the Refugee Youth Project and part of, they're seniors at Patterson High School, just getting ready to graduate in a couple of weeks, right? June 4th? So congratulations, Yay! That's awesome. And to Maya also getting ready to graduate. So to explain our program a little bit, we're going to show you a short video that talks about the program overall and talks about the work that we did in Shenandoah National Park last fall with Reema and Sartre and 18 other students. And the idea was we sort of used the Appalachian Trail as a metaphor for their journey stories and asked them to explore those stories through photography and writing and interviewing one another. Sartre and Reema were actually partners. We paired them up, students from all over the world. I think they were from 12 or 13 different countries from all over the world that had landed in Baltimore. And they were able to explore those things through photography and through the arts and through journalism. We had Ronan Donovan with us, as well as 2 other photographers, Amy Tunsing and John Stanmeyer. And these are photographers, Ronan, I don't want to embarrass you, but these guys are at the top of their game. They are National Geographic photographers, and they're passionate about what they do, and they're also passionate about giving back to young people and mentoring through their craft. And I think that's the heart of Photo Camp. So let's go ahead and show the video. That'll explain from some of the other students' perspectives better than I can.
My name is Abikaya. I'm from Democratic Republic of Congo. I didn't come straight from Congo to the United States. We had to go and take a boat to Namibia. We had to take it at night.
My name is Reema. I'm from Iraq. We had to leave Iraq because my dad was a Palestinian. We went to a camp at the border of Iraq and Syria. We lived there for 6 years. I used to cry every day.
My name is Mohammed. I used to live in Yemen for 13 years. From Yemen, I traveled to Turkey, from Turkey to America.
National Geographic Photo Camp is a series of workshops designed to guide and mentor youth to allow them to tell their own stories through photography.
I remember Kirsten said to me that someday I'm going to start a program for kids that gets cameras in their hands and they can express themselves through photography. I've done photo camps in Jordan, Pakistan, Kenya.
We've just gotten back from Cuba, where we worked with young people who were telling the story of Cuba at this moment in time. Kind of think about what you'd like to show.
When they told me about the photo camp, I thought it was just gonna be like taking pictures and learn about it, but it was different.
In this photo camp, we worked with young refugees at the Shenandoah National Park. It's very nice how the tree is behind her. Your background is really nice.
The instructors who were there helped me a lot by teaching me how to fill the picture.
That's what they teach us. How to take a photograph by feeling it.
You're doing right.
Feel the wind. We feel the light. Feel how the colors looks like.
I learned to take pictures in different ways. I met new friends.
The auto camp is so beautiful to have that experience.
I like the blur. This is beautiful. Very proud of you, Jonas.
You can just go and just like have fun, taking photographs. They're gonna learn how to be friends, how to be like brothers and sisters.
My friends been through the same things that I've been through. At photo camp, what I took away with me was like my story is so important to other people.
A little closer together.
Because I didn't think it was important. But since that day, I've seen how it inspires other people.
Make sure that she's got that sparkle in her eyes. To watch them share those stories and find that commonality, it just was really beautiful.
Miss Kirsten, she always told us, be free and express yourself. If they go to photo camp, they're gonna like express themselves.
We're trying to give them the power to take charge of their own stories. We want to give them a voice.
Trust me, you're just gonna find the little true thing that you was always searching for.
So we wanted you to hear more from Ronan and from the students. So I just have a couple of quick questions to ask them. You guys can, if you just want to use the microphones there. So we'll start with Ronan. And Ronan, I know you were sort of introduced to photo camp through this Shenandoah project, and then soon after that, Ronan traveled to Rwanda to work with kids in Rwanda. And then in 2 weeks from today, I think, we leave to go to Greece to work with young refugee students and Greek students as part of a larger initiative to tell a story of the refugee crisis in Europe through the eyes of young people. That work will be shown alongside of work with Norwegian students and refugee students in Norway at the Nobel Peace Center. So just a little background of some of the photo camp work that Ronan's done and is doing. Ronan, what has sort of inspired you to become a photo camp mentor? If you could talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, having the ability to give back and to engage with young people from all different walks of life, from different backgrounds. My work has in the past been with wildlife and conservation issues. And so this was a way for me to engage in photography in a new way for me, which was a wonderful endeavor, but also, you know, the ability to kind of get back to some of the fundamentals of photography and of storytelling, where you're giving kids the ability to, you know, harness whatever they have inside them, whatever their voice is, whatever subject matter they're passionate about, whether it's their family story, their journey from their home to where they are now. You're giving them the tool in photography, but combining that with storytelling to do that. You know, the camp we did in Rwanda, you know, these are subsistence farmers. These kids don't have access to cameras. They don't have access to anything in the digital world. And you're giving them cameras that they're taking home into their family, and some of their family members have never had their photograph taken before. And we edit those pictures every day with them, lead them through the process of photography, storytelling, and the editing process, which is, you know, there's a way of seeing that is compelling to essentially an international audience. Everybody we're all visual creatures in that sense. And so, you know, and then at the end you give them a tangible photograph that they can bring home of family members that, again, have never had their image taken before. So going into it, the idea was mentorship, inspiring, and also being inspired, but having been through several of these and participated in several of these photo camps, you can tell it's a lot of fun as well, but there's aspects of it that I was really impressed with and floored by. The ability of some of these kids who have never held a camera before, it was incredible to think. Like anyone can take beautiful images, and it was really refreshing in many ways for me to share that and experience that with these kids.
Yeah, I feel the same way. So many photographers would say they are inspired by the students, and we're there to inspire them, but they're really inspiring us. And it is a lot of fun, isn't it? It's such a fun thing to do too. There's nothing wrong with having some fun with the arts and with photography and kids. So Reema, I'd like to hear from you a little bit, if you can grab that. Just wanted for you to talk a little bit about what you learned at the photo camp that you did, and especially how that helped you sort of connect with some other people that you hadn't known before.
Well, through the camp, I learned a lot of different stories about the students that was up there. Most of them had the similar stories, just like mine, and they've been through the same thing I've been through. So like Sartre, we was partners after taking pictures of him and interviewing him about his life stories. We become close to each other since we've been through the same things. And yeah, I learned a lot in the camp, and it was cool.
Thank you, Reema. And Sartre, if you could just talk a little bit about sort of what you experienced, and particularly what kind of impact the program had on you, even after our week together in Shenandoah.
First of all, I'm Sartre and Ndebaneza, so don't mind about East African names. I'm so hard to pronounce. So basically, this program impacted me in many different ways. First of all, before I get in Virginia with National Geographic, when we were heading the way, I felt the sense of belonging to this place. So when I came here, I thought that I would spend all the entire my life here. I don't have any right to travel to any other place, but when I got that opportunity to go to the trip with National Geographic, it impacted me in the way of feel that I have a new identity that I should be proud of. So secondly, when I got to Virginia with them, I get my life being changed with other student. As Reema said, we have similar stories. I didn't feel that I am alone, who had been passing through all those difficulties when I was back home, and when I left my country, so live in a refugee camp. So I thought that I am alone, but when I met Reema and other kids from different background, I felt I am not alone, and they encouraged me. So they impact me in the way of to feel that this story basically inspired me to work hard to reach my goal. I felt again that I can do anything, because I don't have to be held down with my difficulties that I've been passing through, because I saw like Muhammad. So he had been here. He speaks very well English. During that time, I couldn't feel comfortable with my English. I said I have to work on that. So I met a student from Sudan, Syria, from all over the world, more than 10 countries. and I felt that I am in, I take like a tour in those countries. So it was like a good thing, and it had a great impact to shape my future in the way of being optimist of like life situations. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Sartre.
Can I just jump in? Yeah. We have very accomplished young people on this panel. So Sartre has been accepted to several colleges. And Reema was MVP on her soccer team, and she eventually is hoping to go into law enforcement. So I just wanted to mention that we have these very accomplished young people with us today.
And Sartre has told me that he would like to work for the Red Cross, right? Because the Red Cross helped him and his family and his community in the refugee camp where he grew up. So we're just going to end right there with the students. Nothing more from me can beat that. So thank you so much.
So I do want to remind our audience now, yes, if you have questions that you've written on your cards, please send them to the aisles, and we'll collect them. We have wonderful people who will be collecting those cards. But as we have our discussion, if something does occur to you that you didn't get a chance to write on a card, or raise your hand if you want to follow up, or a totally new thought. So we wanted to have sort of a combination of, we wanted to see where the questions were on the cards, if we get things of a similar theme, but we also want some spontaneity. But let me just sort of start things off here, because these all seem like such wonderful programs. But as you know, if you're working in education, everyone wants to know about outcomes, return on investment. Prove it to me that this works. Prove it to me that it can be replicated, duplicated. So who wants to start off with that? How do you know it? Because I said I would come back to you about the research. How do you know that what you're doing is having an impact?
So this team of...
Yes, thank you.
This team from Northwestern University did a randomized controlled longitudinal study. We have biologic data that documents changes in kids' brains as a result of intensive music training. What's important to understand, though, is that the changes don't happen quickly. It took a minimum of 2 years 2 years at a minimum of 5 hours a week of engagement, and that's the structured engagement with us. The amount of time that they practice at home is extra. So the more deeply engaged the kids were, the greater the changes in neurologic improvement became. But this was documented biologically. This helps to explain why our kids are consistently defying the odds, why 30 to 50% are entering STEM majors, why they are going on to fine colleges and studying really daunting things consistently. So basically, we began this program thinking that it was this really great youth development program that was really well accepted and had hundreds of kids on waiting lists. I don't think that at all anymore. Now I view Harmony Project as a human rights issue because we're creating the conditions that enable little kids to harness the plasticity of their own brains and overcome the negative neurologic impact of poverty. Once that happens, they're achieving on par with their more advantaged peers, with the exception that they tend to be far more compassionate people than their more advantaged peers because they've grown up in a program that where they were trained to mentor one another, and they take care of each other and they look after one another, and they're just such beautiful people that I can honestly say that this gives me hope for the future because I can count on Harmony Project students to create futures of which we can all be proud. And I don't know any group of affluent parents who can say that consistently about their kids. I mean, some of them, but not consistently.
All right, thank you for that perspective. I appreciate that. Robyn, what would you say to the question of impact and whether or not what you're doing can be replicated? You know what I'm saying? Or is it better, small scale? How do you answer that question?
Well, just building on this issue about empathy, that is one of the biggest impacts we've seen is around young people's civic attitudes and behaviors. So in DC, we're a real young organization. We've been here for 2 years, but as I mentioned, our bigger offices in Chicago, they've been around for about 18 years. They did a big study of their alumni and found much higher percentages than their peers around their commitment to making a difference in their community, their belief that they can make a difference, that their interest in believing it is their responsibility to be an engaged citizen, and then on hard things, hard facts like 85% of them were registered voters versus I think about 40% of their peers. 33 or 5% continue to volunteer on campaigns compared to much, much smaller numbers in their peer group of millennials or 18 to 35-year-olds. So our sort of results that we look at are in terms of behavior and attitudes towards civic engagement. And but I would say that those are the things we can measure. I think the thing that we have the biggest impact on that is harder to measure is just giving young people a chance to have agency in their own life. And that if there's no opportunity to believe that you can have control over your own life, that you can make a difference, that what you do impacts other things, then we're not providing a path forward. That's such a there's nowhere to go with that attitude. And so if you can switch that, if you can give young people a chance to see their own actions come into fruition in a difference they've made in their school, in their neighborhood, then I think the ripple effect of that is so much larger.
So Kirsten, I'd like you to speak to the question of getting started, getting something off the ground. So you have this idea, you think it's a great idea. Of course, Dr. Canter said even a crappy idea is okay to have, but you think you have this great idea. And I know you said that passion is an important element. What are the other elements you need if you're thinking about doing some sort of, youth empowerment program?
So if someone wants to begin their own organization like this, well, let's see. I did that when I was, I can't remember how old I was exactly, but it was 14, 15 years ago. And I was a photographer for the New York Times here in the Washington Bureau. And along with my other New York Times colleagues, we decided we would like to put the camera in the hands of the people that are being documented. And I have a passion for young people because I feel like I know that, corny as this sounds, they are about to rule the world really soon. And I'm just so excited about that and using what I know, which is photography. So with my New York Times colleagues, they said, okay, you start it, Kirsten. So that's how it started. And really, it was just a lot of details of making sure you get that 501c3 application done. And, some of those kind of boring details about sort of starting a project like that. And
I think it's just important to hear that you didn't come from that nonprofit background. You were a news photographer.
I just started that and just, with a couple of colleagues from the New York Times, but then connecting with a place like National Geographic, where we were then able to take this small program in Annapolis, Maryland, I was doing juvenile drug court work with photography, and then to spread it throughout the world. We've, as it said on the video, 20 different countries. We've done 75 of these workshops, and the ability now, as I said earlier, to be able to work on larger themes. So the story of the refugee crisis through the eyes of young people with National Geographic's support and help, and we're able to do something much bigger. So it's amazing. I mean, that does sound like a lot of years, 14, 15 years, but it's incredible. There's just little details that you do at the beginning to get it started, and then connecting with an important creative partner like National Geographic enabled us to really spread what we were trying to do around the world.
I want to ask our students how and why they decided to get involved. So let's start with you, Maya. I mean, how did you even hear about it? Were they in your school? Did you hear about it on social media? I mean, how did you at first even get on your radar, this Mikva challenge? How did you hear about it?
I started getting involved with Mikva Challenge in 10th grade. We were assigned a project to the project Soapbox speech because Mikva Challenge has civic engagement curriculums, and so our teacher was a part of that. She had adopted the curriculum, and that's how.
So through your school, you got involved.
And then from there, there were just more opportunities, one after another.
Reema and Sartre, how did you hear about photo camp, and what made you say yes, Sartre?
Oh well, I heard about photo camp from. I can say she's my teacher and my mentor.
Importance of teachers, yes, right, yes.
from Miss Kirsten. She's here with me. She's there. So.
Oh, is she here? Wait, where's the teacher? Please stand up. Hey.
Yeah, because at my school I'm chief news editor. So basically, what I do there, I am more engaged in the community. So when she told me about that opportunity to share my story with other students, so I found there is kind of a great opportunity for me to go there and inspire others and get some inspiration from them also. So in order to build my personal knowledge and to know basically and be out of town.
Yes.
So.
Yes,
yeah.
I understand. And we should say, Sartre, you're from Congo, right? It's a country that is known for obviously so much trouble, and your family was able to escape from that, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
So I am from Congo, and basically I spent more than 10 years in a refugee camp in Burundi, where ability of traveling was limited. So even though you have what required to travel, you can't because you don't have that authority to
yes.
to leave the camp.
I understand.
So I grew up in that area. So basically, I felt that I'm kind of like enclosed some way, yes. And I have to expand my my thought and feel free somehow mindfully. So when I get here, I feel this is a great opportunity.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Reema, how did you hear about Photo Camp and what made you say yes? The reason I'm asking that question, because I think often you may have a program and you're trying to get your clients engaged with. So Reema, how did you hear about it and what made you say yes?
Well, Miss Kirsten is the one who, told us about it. And
yeah, go ahead. And then
yeah, but I've been dreaming about, taking pictures and, learn about new stuff. And when she told me about it, I was so excited to go up there and, meet new friends and new people. And yeah.
Right. Oh, that's fantastic. So again, teachers, so important, right, to have that conduit sometimes through teachers who understand a program and can talk to students about it. Talk about any unexpected outcomes with the program. Laura, any stories come to mind about things you didn't even anticipate through the program that either happened to you, the organization, or to the students as they were going through?
Well, all of the above. When I started it, it was really more or less by the seat of my pants. I'm not a musician. I am a music lover, and my tickets to the symphony are my greatest desire to hold on to. But I knew who to ask for help. And the biggest surprise to me was I noticed finally after breathing, after a year and a half, that it was working beyond anything I imagined. And we had children, well, I'll name a few. In the beginning, there were two boys especially that I thought, oh, they're just never going to make it. I'll give it my best shot, but they are never going to make it. And I didn't know what to do with them. Well, they are our prize students now, and really it was miraculous. It was miraculous for me to see, even though I had read all the statistics, that it actually does happen. And these children, their lives are completely going to be changed, transformed, increased in every way because of sticking with it and staying in this program. And we're just at 2 years now.
Wow.
So that's the surprise for me.
Right. Any other surprises, unanticipated outcomes?
Well, watching the kids discover the truth about their own creative capacity. None of them think that they're going to be able to do anything with this instrument. Watching parents look at their own kids with different eyes and see them differently. Watching the kids' horizons expand. And what's really blown us away, kids with learning disabilities, ADHD, dyslexic, on the autism spectrum, thriving in the program because, as we know, the intensive study of music transforms kids neurologically. We have a profoundly autistic boy who was nonverbal through the age of 12 and hyperactive as well, who has just been accepted by both the New England Conservatory and the Berklee School of Music as a cello performance major. And the last thing is, what's blown my mind is, they're not just going off to college, they're going to grad school. And poverty is over, and that's not hyperbolic for our kids. Poverty is over for them. And it's just in the course of 8 to 10 years that they're with us. So this is something that now we feel we have an obligation to support communities all over the country to integrate mentoring through music in the lowest income communities, because we don't have to have an achievement gap. Here's this little guerrilla program on the fringes somewhere, routinely closing that achievement gap, and the model's been replicated in 10 regions across 7 states.
And explain why you don't like to be called a music program.
All right, well, you guys know, I was married for many years to a Grammy Award-winning chamber musician, and his hobby was cooking. So you could only imagine the lovely afternoons, Sunday afternoons in my house where these fine musicians would blow through and they would read chamber music and they would eat, these lovely Italian meals. And then the conversation would get around to the bluing of the hair of the audiences and the dwindling of the series, and everybody would moan and groan and do that musician whine. And then they would finish their Cabernet, get into their Lexus and drive home, and nobody ever raised one word about what they could do about it, to build audiences, to reach out into the communities, to make the symphonies and the performing institutions look like the communities in which they exist. And it made me crazy. It absolutely made me crazy. So no, we're used to pushing music programs. It's one of the warm fuzzies that you can push off and away. But our music products industry partners tell us that the average attrition rate for anyone entering music studies is 80% in the first 18 to 24 months. Our class of 2016 had an average length of participation of 7 years. That was up from 6.9 years for our class of 2015, and 2017 it was 7.33 years. That's average. So clearly when you make it be primarily a mentoring program, we're engaging the kids long term. And I also just want to ask you to reflect on what an amazing metaphor for community an ensemble is. Because our kids spend 5 to 12 hours a week in structured activities where they listen to each other carefully, where they learn when to solo and when to improvise and when to blend in. And I'm fond of saying that if members of Congress had grown up within Harmony Project,
I was going to say,
we would have a far more functional federal government, because they think they just have to show up. But it's really hard to make music that sounds good with other people in real time. It takes a lot of practice. And the members of Congress need to understand that it doesn't just happen because they walked into the room and because they were anointed by their constituents, it's going to happen. They don't know how to practice, and they haven't learned.
Thank you, Margaret. I think she's a woman of passion and opinions. Let me see. Vanessa, do we have any? Are you ready with any audience questions from the cards? All right, let's take some from the audience. Let's mix it up.
So, Lark, you mentioned that one of the first questions is impact. Another first question, or maybe second, is money. So we have several questions here about funding,
yes,
budget. How do you meet demand of the community while focused on quality over quantity and being challenged with doing more with less, as is the plight of many nonprofit organizations?
Robyn, you want to start us off on that one?
And how do you ensure revenue stream over time, longevity, sustainability?
Great questions, yes. Money.
Well, I'll say that I have the great privilege of getting to work with about 30 public school teachers in DC. And so one of the ways that I think we are able to maximize resources is that we do our program through teachers in the classroom. So we partner with teachers who implement our work directly in classes that students are already taking during the school day, US government, DC history classes, public policy classes. It allows us to be a lean staff. The Mikva Challenge DC staff are just 3 of us, yet we impact about 1,000 students a year in the city, and in Chicago it's about 6,000 or 7,000 students. So we are also fortunate because we were founded as a legacy program for Judge Abner Mikva, we have a great group of dedicated volunteers and supporters who were mentored by him either early in their career on the Hill or as lawyers or as clerking with him on the court. And so I'm lucky to have a great group of people who are very supportive of the program. But it is a challenge. It's a piece of my time to go out and inspire people that Mikva Challenge DC is doing important work, that we're helping to cultivate a new generation of engaged young citizens. And so, it's front of your mind as an executive director to be out there making sure that people know what you're doing and to convince them that that you are an important part of their community to invest in.
Kirsten, the money piece, I mean, how difficult is that?
Well, I would say that we're a little bit different kind of organization than Mikva, but our partnerships are what's important to us in terms of funding and money and things like that. We're supported by, we partner with places like the Boys and Girls Club on the Pine Ridge Native American Reservation. Internews is another one of our partners. Mercy Corps is who we worked with in Haiti. So I guess it's a little bit beyond just the money, but it's the resources
but part of it
that we need.
Partnering, knowing when to partner.
Knowing when to partner, and the resources of having someone on the ground in a place like Haiti or Chad or South Sudan that can help, that really know the communities and really know the students and can, that's worth money to us. We're not sending someone there, dropping someone in that doesn't know the community. We are working with communities on the ground. And that, and often it's a financial partnership as well. Sometimes there's grants that we write together and partnerships and things like that. But that's an important part of our ability to have strong resources and adds to our ability to do what we're trying to do.
Sure. Any follow-ups on the money piece from the audience? Okay. Yes, go ahead. And then we'll get to you, Laura. Yes. Hold it, wait for a mic. We're going to get you a microphone.
Yes, I work for a foundation that is an arts funder, an arts education funder. One thing that might be helpful is for organizations that organize situations such as this, invite grant managers from funding organizations. I get all sorts of things from the Kennedy Center, and fortunately I was able to go to this and learn about some terrific groups and do some follow-up from there.
Fantastic.
So reach out.
Well, thank you for mentioning that. All right, Kennedy Center, make note. Invite the people who have the money. Right? Noted. All right, Laura and Margaret, do you want to follow up on the challenge?
We found that it's interesting. We're achieving outcomes that span a lot of different disciplines. So Harmony Project is a public health intervention. So we have law enforcement outcomes because we have kids leaving gangs to focus on music and Harmony Project. We are a public health intervention because given the teen birth rate in the neighborhoods where we intentionally site the programs, we would anticipate 1 birth for every 20 to 40 girls between the ages of 11 and 18 in our program per year. We've got, in LA, for instance, over 2,000 kids. We haven't always had over 2,000, but we've had over 1,000 for a long time. The top of our age distribution are 11 to 15-year-olds. We've had 2 births in 16 years, and we haven't had any in the last 9. So it gives you an idea. Sure. So we're closing the achievement gap. So we have education outcomes, mental health outcomes. We're a suicide prevention program because our kids, every single one of them tells us that when they've had a bad day and they feel terrible and they live, the circumstances of their lives are frequently really, really grim. They take out their instrument and they play for half an hour or an hour and then they're okay again. So we're a non-pharmacologic mood elevation system, okay? And trust me, and we're a character development program, and it was our kids that told us that Harmony Project improved their character. We never even used the word, but it was in focus groups that we were doing at our 10th year. So we're all of those things, and we find that the people in communities and law enforcement and parks and rec and housing authority and education and arts typically don't talk to each other, but they're all seeking the same kinds of outcomes. So we find that we have to kind of till the soil in a community and facilitate conversations across disciplines, and then everybody pitches in a little bit, and then you tap the corporate because they want people who know how to show up and come prepared, and you can't do that. You can't play in an ensemble, in an orchestra, unless you've learned how to do that.
Okay, thank you. I think we have more questions from the audience. Vanessa? Oh, and then
okay. I have a series of questions here that are kind of related to partnership and institutions. So how are these programs working with or outside of school systems? The STEM versus STEAM conversation. And intersection with governments. How does political will impact the strength and sustainability of your programs? And how are the decision makers and policymakers in your cities receiving the information, receiving feedback about your programs?
Laura, you want to tackle that? Do you feel, are you at the whims of,
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
We all have struggles with foundations that are running a little scared right now. So we have to reach across and form cost-sharing partnerships, which we're trying with the schools. And that's just starting for us, just this year. But of course, you have to remember we were only a year old when we were begging for things. So we really didn't have our own outcomes yet. Partnerships, actually, single donors have been the strongest in Kansas City. We have a very philanthropic community, and we have formed relationships. Relationships are everything. And once you're in with, one woman said, if you get one foundation grant at the beginning of everything, then everyone else will take you more seriously. And this woman gave us that grant before we even had a child come through the door. And it did open doors for us. So
so in other words, getting one large grant can be very helpful in getting other grants.
Exactly.
Is that your experience? Okay.
And they talk to each other, and of course, marketing, every little piece of it counts. And every time someone mentions your name, and especially in a city our size, it's a little bit easier. Then someone else hears about it, and the more doors that you can open through relationships, it really counts. Now, as far as policy goes, again, we have a lot of organizations in Kansas City that help each other, and nonprofit advisory committees. And so we're always checking in to see about how we can belong to advocacy groups without harming our own situations. But we're all pretty worried right now about the NEA, and hopefully it's sounding like it might be okay, but they're going to have to spread themselves pretty thin.
Sure.
Anyone else?
Vicky, did you have a question in the audience? Mm-hmm.
I was just going to make people aware of a program, and it has a little bit to do with the money question and a little bit to working with other organizations. And it's a program that I just became aware of because my daughter went to the University of Southern California, which is a very lovely school, also known as the University of Spoiled Children. But it's in this lovely area, but around it is a very not so nice area. And they found it in their best interests to actually help the neighborhoods around them, and are investing heavily in enhancing particularly the arts programs in the schools all around them. And so I don't know if you have any universities that might be willing to look at that as a model, but the University of Southern California has just been written up in a number of other publications as like a big deal for reaching out into their community and doing this, and they're now seeing the fruits of their labor in terms of even getting to the point of taking some of the students that have been through these programs into USC as students.
Right. So I think Lori had a comment on that. Yes, working with universities and also
near, but particularly for your kind of program.
Exactly. I would just add to that that we formed partnerships with Kansas University and Park University, which are both in Kansas City, and they are very interested in following our children, not just to come in and help them plan for college, but because at their research institute, they have no diversity. And they are begging for diversity. And when we had a long discussion, I said, you have to come and get it. You have to come and raise it up. And they are actually talking about doing that and supporting our program in a big way. So I advise that as well.
Thank you. Vanessa, we have more questions?
We do, about sustained engagement and outcomes. So specifically here, I'm going to give you a few. For photo camp, what is the follow-up after you open their minds? How do you help them continue? And I have one for Harmony Project. What support do you offer students, first-generation students, once they go off to college?
All right. Kirsten, you want to take this?
And what is the effect?
Wait, there's more.
And what is the effect, I think this is generally, what is the effect of the change on the students, on their family? And maybe that's a question for the young people on the panel.
Yes, great idea.
The follow-up.
You want to start with the follow-up?
Some of the follow-up that we do.
Great questions, thank you.
So in each location that we go to, we work with, and to follow on your question about universities and colleges and things, we always work with local teaching assistants. So they're often young photography or journalism students at the universities nearby. And so we come in and we, jazz everybody with this week-long workshop with a photographer like Ronan and or John Stanmeyer or some of these other photographers. And then the assistants that have helped us as team leaders will form photography clubs and Facebook groups. And in Cuba, they formed what's called National Geographic Photo Camp Cuba. And they get together and continue with their work. The day we left Cuba was the day that Fidel passed away. So they were out there on assignment, on their own. We left and came home. To the United States, but they went and were photographing and have formed bonds and community through the local university that we had partnered with. We're also...
So there is follow-up in a sustained way.
And at times we've been able to donate cameras, so like at the Boys and Girls Club on the Native American Reservation in Pine Ridge, we donated cameras so that the students were able to come and check out cameras and continue with their photography club. And we're also looking at an online community to develop for photo camps, so all of the students from all over the different camps that they worked on are able to communicate with one another. I mean, wouldn't it be cool if the refugee students that are here in the United States that have come on a different journey were able to connect and communicate with the stories of the refugee students that are more freshly arrived from their places in Europe and things like that. So that's what we're working on right now, to develop a community for all of the thousands of students that we've worked with, and for others to be able to see their stories just in one place. So.
Anyone else want to jump in on that one?
I can respond to how we support our kids. So we have workshops. Most of our kids are first-generation college students. So we have workshops for middle schoolers to prepare for taking the right classes so that you can get into college. Our kids have to turn in copies of their grade reports every year so that we can step in and get tutoring for students that are struggling in a particular subject. We help them plan for, apply to, and go to college with our own scholarship program we offer in Los Angeles, and we're working to raise funds to be able to provide that for our programs all over the country. But we offer $5,000 scholarships to students who graduate high school, have participated at least 3 years, are accepted to a 2 or 4 year college or trade school. They have to actually go, and they have to turn in copies of their transcripts with a 2.5 or better, having completed at least 12 units or more. Then they get $625 per semester. So we spread the $5,000 out over 4 years. If the student, if mom's cancer comes back, they have to drop out to help with the younger siblings at home or something. The scholarship waits for them because we're family. but that's how we do it. The interesting thing is that fine universities they've got diversity requirements in terms of ethnic diversity and economic diversity. So we've started to have people, Cornell Institute for Public Administration's director reached out and was so thrilled with the first student who came there for the graduate program. She said, do you have anybody else? So we're now sending our second student to the Cornell Institute for Public Administration. So this is going to be a huge growth thing because we're sort of ground zero for diversity for kids who are going to be able to succeed well in a fine institution.
Any follow-ups along those lines with the people who had those questions? Were your questions answered? Yes, go ahead. We'll get you a microphone. Hold on.
Great.
Thank you.
So I'm super excited about your organization. I worked with migrant education studies when I was in high school, and I tutored, and so I'm right there with you with my ESL kids. However, first-generational college students have a lot of issues, and there's a huge dropout rate for students because of the cultural differences in academia. So how do you prepare your students to fit into this academic world? I mean, they're great musicians, but like, how do you handle that?
Well, first of all, Harmony Project is a mentoring program, so they've already come with deep social connections to other students that are going off to college, and then and they're used to mentoring one another. So the kids that are in college come back and they run workshops to prepare the kids. Well, here's what I was having problems with. For instance, give you one case in point. This one young woman said, I never had so many choices in terms of food. And then I found after a couple of months my clothes weren't fitting and I couldn't figure out what was going on. I had to actually think about what I was going to be eating so that I didn't blow up. But I mean, because there was only just 2 or 3 things to eat before at home, that type of thing.
Gotcha. Well, I'd like to hear from the students again. So Maya, why don't we just begin with you, especially after you've heard these people talk about different programs. What would you say to some of your younger students at your school about you joining a program, starting a program, how it's affected you, what it's done for you? What would you say?
Well, I think it's definitely important to do something that's extremely personal. So all of the speeches I do, pieces I do for my journalism class, all the clubs I join, all the opportunities I take, typically are rooted in issues very important to me and based off of my experiences. I think it's changed me in a way, not in a way that it's really like made me interested in the areas I work in, but it's really just affirmed for me that this is the right area that I want to be in, and it's allowed me to have numerous opportunities for networking. And so I think just the important thing is just like say yes. I say yes to like lots of things. And,
say yes.
And it,
right. Say yes.
Yeah,
okay.
And it provides numerous opportunities, and
yes.
I've really grown as a person because of it.
Wow. Reema, what would you say? Maya says, say yes. What would you say?
She's saying no.
She's saying no. She's going to let her photography is going to speak for her. Right, her photography speaks for her. Sartre?
So, I never said no to anything which the community will benefit from, and which will help me to have a progress. So, like for example, at my school, I never say no to do any volunteer work that they assign me to do or they request me to do. And contrarily, it's me who went and asked them what I can do, like for our school or in our community. Sometimes what I do, there is sometimes that I take a college class in the evening, and in the morning I go to school. So I try to look at time in between that I can help tutor middle school students who are struggling in English like me or in other subjects. Yes. Or I went there having fun with them playing soccer. So I never said no to anything. I will say yes.
Oh, wonderful. And Ronan, I would like to just hear from you one last time, and maybe you'll be our last word on the panel, because you've talked about how the project changed you and changed your photography and the things that you're interested in. It made you not just interested in beautiful photos, but photos that could have impact, maybe even change the world. How did it change you?
Well, I spend most of my time in the mountains or in the jungle. So to be around a community of young people who are incredibly inspiring to me, to see how much they want to learn. I'm a photographer, but editing somebody else's work is this incredible experience where it's literally a gateway into how they see the world and into their mind. And so you edit these kids' work, and you realize when you give them an assignment and they're up an hour before sunrise, they're hiking an hour from home, they're shooting all day, they're out with their friends at night, going out to try something that they've never done before. We don't teach them night photography necessarily, but they're out there trying to figure this out, and the flash pops up and they end up taking a picture in the dark, and it's been really inspiring to me to see how empowering photography and art can be as a gateway to get these kids to think about the world and their future, critical thinking aspects of life that they didn't have access to necessarily before in their own community.
Well, thank you all. I think that's a great word. You are all so inspiring. The things that you have done, the lives you have changed. It's been my privilege to learn from you. Thank you so much for spending your afternoon with us.